What is your plan moving forward for the next few weeks?
I'm not really worried about the Tom fight. I'm really worried about the Pereira fight. That's what I want to do. And, I'll retire the heavyweight belt if I have to. It's like, dude, give the guy what he wants at the end of the day, If I give him the opportunity to fight me, I want to be so compensated. I want to say it, I want that fuck you money, honestly. And,
Alright, so everyone's favorite drunk driving fiance beating maniac, Jon Jones, just steamrolled Stipe Miocic last night at UFC 309. And hey, Jon won the fight fair and square. I really don't think that anyone can take that away from him. He came in, fought a clean fight, completely dominated Stipe, and I think that that should be acknowledged before I say anything else. But with that out of the way, Stipe looked terrible in the octagon last night, and even though it isn't Jon's fault that Miocic looked as slow and geriatric as he did, I'd be lying if I said that Stipe's performance doesn't take away from Jon's achievement at least a little bit. Not only that, I can't help but wonder if this is exactly what Jones was banking on when he demanded to fight Stipe over Tom Aspinall. And to add to the ducking allegations, during the UFC 309 post-fight press conference, Jon outright said that he's more willing to relinquish the heavyweight title in order to fight Alex Pereira instead of Aspinall. I have a lot of thoughts on Jon avoiding his toughest challenge in Tom, but before I talk about that, let's recap Jon vs. Stipe really quickly. Jones was able to pull off a nasty trip on Stipe a minute and a half into the fight, and once he was on top, Jon did what he does and elbowed the shit out of Stipe for the remainder of the round. On my scorecard, I thought that this was a clear 10-8 round in favor of Jon, and after this round ended, I really thought that every round afterward was going to be a rinse and repeat of what we saw here. Because much like many of you guys, I fully predicted Jon to win this fight, but I thought that his wrestling and grappling was going to be what carried him to the win. I really thought that if Stipe could somehow avoid Jon's takedowns and keep the fight standing, then he had a realistic enough chance at catching Jon, but oh, was I wrong. Because starting in the second round, Jon made it a point to see if his striking would be enough to earn him the win, and yeah, let's just say it was more than enough. Jon's jab was landing almost every single time that he threw it, and his straight punches caught Stipe off guard a lot as well. Anyways, second round was another clear round for Jones, and at this point of the fight, it became pretty clear to most people watching that Stipe was completely outmatched. Third round starts, and you can definitely tell that Jon felt confident in his boxing because he started throwing fewer kicks compared to the second round and started working off of his jab a lot more. At a minute and a half into the round, Jon landed a 1-2 combo that made Stipe visibly wince, and he backed himself up against the cage. For anyone that was watching, I think that we can all agree that this was the beginning of the end, and even though Stipe tried to fight through Jon's pressure, Jones was able to keep picking Stipe apart with his jab and his kicks until at the very end of the round, Jon landed a brutal spinning back kick to Stipe's body that immediately made him crumple to the ground. A couple of follow-up shots later resulted in Herb Dean stopping the fight, and thus Jon retained his heavyweight championship. But look, man, at the risk of sounding like a Jon Jones hater, which admittedly I probably am one, I'm not sure how impressed I can be at this win. Sure, the fact that Jon TKO'd Stipe, who is the most accomplished UFC heavyweight of all time, looks great on paper, but this specific version of Miocic who fought last night was clearly a shell of his former self. Even Joe Rogan and Daniel Cormier commented on how slow he looked in there, and they even mentioned how timid he looked, and frankly, I agree with them. Anyways, the entire time that I was watching Jon kick Stipe's ass, I couldn't help but think how much more of a challenge Tom Aspinall would have been if he were the one standing across the cage from Jones instead. Obviously, Jon has been going on and on about his legacy throughout this past fight week, and he's repeatedly said that fighting Stipe does more to cement his GOAT status than fighting Aspinall does. And even though I definitely disagreed with that idea before UFC 309 happened, after seeing Stipe's performance last night, I am now positive that fighting Aspinall would have done way more for Jon's legacy than his win last night did. Jon is not a smart guy in many aspects of life, but when it comes to his career and the fights themselves, he is a very calculated guy. Thus, in the case of Tom Aspinall, who's bigger and quicker than Jon while also being very well-rounded, I do think that Jones is trying to avoid fighting him because he doesn't want to risk losing this late in his career. And for all the people that are saying that all the UFC has to do in order to get Jon to fight Tom is to pay him the money that he wants, does this not sound very similar to when Jones demanded $30 million from Dana to fight Francis Ngannou? Jon intentionally priced himself out of that fight because in my opinion, he also ducked Francis, and I feel like he's planting the same exact seeds here with Aspinall. And honestly, I think it's damn near impossible to deny that Jon is ducking Tom, seeing as he's now saying that he's willing to abandon his heavyweight title in order to fight Alex Pereira. Look, on one hand, I can see why Jon wants to fight Alex because admittedly, it is a much better legacy fight for him than fighting Stipe Miocic in 2024 is. Alex also has 2 belts in 2 different weight divisions and is currently cleaning out the light heavyweight division, which Jon dominated for over a decade. But at the same time, do I think it's a coincidence that Jon wants to fight a guy who was taken down by middleweight Israel Adesanya and was held down by Jan Blachowicz? No, I don't think it's a coincidence at all. Like I said, Jon is very calculated in that he knows how to get the maximum result out of minimum effort, and although Pereira is the scariest striker we've seen in the UFC maybe ever, even the most casual of fans will know that Jon is a terrible stylistic matchup for him. Also, listen to Jon's ridiculous excuse as to why he'd rather fight Pereira over Aspinall.
I don't want to fight dangerous up-and-comers anymore. I want to fight dangerous, established champions.
First of all, Tom has been in the UFC longer than Alex has, so I would hardly call Tom the up-and-coming fighter between the two. And the only reason why Tom is not an established champion right now, like how Jon refers to Alex, is because Jon won't give Tom the opportunity to fight for the undisputed belt. This is textbook Hall of Fame ducking out of the greatest of all time, Jon Jones, and the weird part about it is that I would actually love to see him fight Alex. That's 100% a super fight that both casual and hardcore fans would love to watch. But the fact that Jon is so clearly avoiding Tom Aspinall has totally cast a shadow over his legacy, where even if he does end up fighting Alex, we'll all know that it's so that he can bolster his GOAT status while also avoiding his toughest opponent. And then, of course, Jon will come up with some more lies about how Tom doesn't do anything to help his legacy while also minimizing how good of a fighter he is. But if that's really how Jon feels, then why doesn't he just fight the guy and then beat him as easily as he says he would? Hey, in a perfect world, Jon fights Tom and Alex before he retires, and honestly, even if he loses both of those fights, which I really doubt would happen, I would respect the hell out of Jon for stepping up and putting his money where his mouth is. Because even if he does beat Alex Pereira and rides off into the sunset, which personally I feel like is going to happen, anybody who's truly paying attention will know that the truth of the matter is that he avoided Tom Aspinall in order to do it. And who knows, maybe Jon actually makes Tom look silly and smokes him in the first round like Jon says would happen. I'm not saying that's out of the question. But with Jon being so adamant and refusing to unify the heavyweight title, and now that he's turned his sights to Alex Pereira, it just makes him look like such a diva to the point where it's become ridiculous. Anyways, that's the video for today. Definitely let me know what you think about the UFC 309 main event last night. Do you think that Jon's win last night is as big of an achievement as he makes it seem to be? Also, do you think that Jon is avoiding Tom Aspinall at all costs like I do? As always, if you like the video, then like the video, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do so. I appreciate you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.